Okay, everyone, welcome to the ReTribalize Academy. This is our first episode and class. The ReTribalize, Academy and channel is dedicated to building the towns, the villages, and the communities of the future. Today we're talking about one of the most important elements of this, and that is finding your founding team, finding co-founders who want to build the dream with you. So a little bit of backstory on this briefly is I've lived in and out of intentional communities for the last 10 years. I've, built brotherhood circles. I've always wanted to how do we literally build a town? That's my dream. I may be a grandiose soul, but that's what I want to do. And I'm here in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala right now at this conference for regenerative farmers, for crypto enthusiasts. It's about DAOs and different ways of governance on land. And at this conference, there's about, I would say, 30 different land projects and intentional communities represented there. And there's also hundreds of people who are interested in building new types of intentional communities. And at this conference, I, gave a tiny little keynote speech thing. And I was talking about the process of okay, everyone here, raise your hands if you want to build a village with your friends. You want to find awesome people and build some kind of co-living village, space with them. And a lot of hands rose up, right? And then I asked the question of how many of your friends would you marry, right? How many of your friends would you link destinies with for life? Because this is really what it takes to build some kind of community, is you really want to find those co-founders who go with you. I think there's many different roles people can play inside of community, but if we do want to build these bigger dreams into the world, what we're looking for is partners in that. So I would say the main two obstacles blocking the vast majority of people from doing bigger dreams, from moving towards, building some kind of community, is not having a great founding team, and B is an economic engine of some kind. These are the two main problems, and today we're focused on the first one. So I'm joined here with Brennan, my co-founder. We've been building the app together. He helps me run the Men's Academy. We've been traveling the world together as well. And we have a really cool project here in class that we want to share with you. So Brennan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Christian. It's great to be here with all of you. And I'm the co-founder of ReTribalize Academy, and I had a very different past 10 years than Christian did. I spent about 5 years working as a program manager at a large management consulting firm. And before that, I worked in government relations and policy advocacy here in DC, where I've primarily lived for much of my life. And, I really value a lot of those experiences. I feel like I learned a lot from successes and failures over the years, met a lot of great and interesting people. But perhaps like some of you, I also felt some of the friction of working in bureaucratic organizations, some of the isolation that can come from corporate life. And I wanted to start something new. And that's a difficult thing to do because you often feel like you're on your own, or you have to have a brilliant idea. And if you're trying to do something like start a new town to build close-knit real world communities, that can be really daunting, and we can get into a kind of solopreneurship mindset. And so I think part of what's so important about finding co-founders is it makes it easier. If you're looking to step outside your current life, wherever your dream endpoint is, to do that and find people to go on the journey with you. And it's far less daunting if you're able to find that. So a couple of months ago, I left my job. I'm now working full time with Christian and the team to build ReTribalize and to help to support people on that journey as well. And we have a lot of exciting content, I think, interesting things to talk about today. And perhaps a good place to start, Christian, is with that. This is a long journey. There's a lot of things to do if you want to build a town, you want to build some kind of an economic engine, something like that. From your standpoint, when you think about the importance of team, where do you get started with this? What's a good natural starting point?
Yeah. So the first starting point always is yourself, right? How can we be capable of being on a team? How can we be capable of leadership? And I talk a lot about the hero's journey, about self-actualization on my main channel, Wisdom Warriors. I think everyone here is I'm going to assume everyone's already on the path of, improving themselves, becoming more capable in a variety of ways. So when you're on this path, one thing to always do in parallel to personal development is constantly filter the world to find your founding team, like find your chosen family. In fact, I think in my mind, like team always comes first. It comes first in everything I think about. For instance, we have so many people out here trying to like start another, coaching business or solo entrepreneur business, or a lot of you are actually waiting for like your big vision of like what you want to do, right? And the crazy thing is that when you just find one co-founder, like when you find one person who is in high alignment with you and you start linking destinies together, this is where the greatest ideas come from. In fact, I would say like true friendship, small founding teams, a wolf pack, these are the things that spark like most grand voyages, most great projects, businesses, startups. It's like Steve Jobs and Wozniak, talking in their basement. It's the Wright brothers masterminding on how do we build the airplane. It's Achilles and Patroclus that are about to go cross the ocean to go, conquer Troy, right? A lot of these great projects, they actually come when you find someone who's in high alignment with you. And just think back to some of the times you've been most inspired. You have had the biggest ideas in your life. I bet it's talking to someone like Brennan, like my other co-founder, Steven. When I'm talking with my best friends, and like this is what sparks the big ideas. So this gets into a couple key principles within the ReTribalize project and our philosophy here. One is find your co-founder, right? So filter the world to find someone who's in high alignment with you and create proximity with them. That's what we're talking about today. A second principle here is this idea of organic emergence. And oftentimes when we're sitting there unsure what to do, there's this impulse to go blueprint things. Like what's the correct governance system for the projects of the future, right? Like what's the ecology or architecture? Like how do we impose our mind's eye, like our God's will onto like building some kind of business or project for our life? But anyone who's really built anything in their life understands that's not how nature works, right? In fact, you can have a North Star for your business, but every step of creating content, of making a sale, of finding a team member is 1,000 pivots. It's 1,000 points of feedback. It's an invisible staircase. So actually what's more important than money, a great idea, being a genius, architect, like none of it matters. Like what matters the most is that you do have a North Star and that you're finding other people who are going to the North Star with you, because your energy together creates this mastermind effect where actual genius occurs, where grand ideas occur. So to give you like a quick example of this, ReTribalize, this whole YouTube channel was a figment in my imagination. It was born sitting out under the stars one night by myself, feeling like terribly alone in Denver. I'm like, I have great friends all around me, but even if they live 10 minutes away, I see them once a week. I see them twice a week, right? I'm like, how can we build an actual sense of tribe again? A feeling like this is my team. This is my family. We are going there together and we're building something glorious along the way. That's what tribe means to me, right? And this is something we've always had, right? We've always had it. So I was like lamenting the modern world of isolation, of atomization. And in that moment, like this ReTribalize project, was birthed, but it didn't really feel like it was born. Like it was a conception. It wasn't born until I met my friend Steven, right? And we'll talk about the whole process of how I met Steven, how I brought him, like how we met in real life. But essentially we met up in Mexico for a month. And through our conversations there, getting to know each other, seeing like what's there, this is what birthed so much of the idea for the app, the YouTube channel, where we're going now. It made all these dreams feel real, right? So I do think there's 1,000 problems with finding a co-founder. This is why so many people are like, I'm against partnerships because it's hard. And a lot of those people are like, I'm against marriage because it's hard. But I'm like, if you want to actually build, there's a way to do it properly, to find co-founders, to find the correct partners. So that's where I would start. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I resonate with what you were saying about you can have friends that are very close by. And there are people here in DC that I've known for years, people that I care about dearly. And it's so easy to get caught up in daily life. You're going through your own struggles, you're in your own rhythm of things that you're not really united, and that's part of the isolation that people feel. But if I could sort of, summarize or unpack like the perhaps, what I heard is sort of the four key things coming out of what you said is there's perhaps, several stages. On one hand, there's first this personal journey to go on to become somebody who has self-awareness, the capacity, the agency to be successful on a project like this. There's the inner piece of it. There's a filtration process. There's an outer network, as we sometimes talk about, of all the people you might know in your wider network. Then there's a process, third, of trying to find an inner circle of who are the people that we're going to bring in and start sharing our lives with in a deeper way, like you and Stephen in Mexico. And then over time, this process of building a team, understanding how each other work together, understanding who's going to play what roles. And that's going to emerge in some ways organically. And then through that, there'll also be an organic emergence of ideas, possibilities that are going to be more powerful and more flexible and adaptable than if we try to rigidly plan everything out at the beginning. And I want to, thinking about that summary, a question for you, Christian, and I have some thoughts on this as well. What do you think are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls that people might make at any of those stages along the way, or things where people can get hung up?
I think that there's a variety of pitfalls and stages. I think one thing that I've always prioritized is like real life relationships. I learn so much more, so much faster through them. I think one of the greatest pitfalls is this like chronically online kind of attitude and then social isolation. And because like we don't have a strong bonds with each other, it actually encourages us to become like a solo entrepreneur because it's easier, a solo influencer, right? Or like just like a digital nomad, or you work like your normal job, right? And I think for me, like that felt deeply unfulfilling. I was a content creator, a coach, running my own thing for a long time. And then I went through this breakup, right? With this lady. I learned so much from that relationship. But then I was like set adrift again. I was like, wow, I'm not really bonded to any man in the entire world, like really going a direction. So I think one of the hangups is like trying to be too independent rather than being like interdependent, right? Like instead of becoming an entrepreneur, maybe becoming an intrapreneur, right? If like you want to do exactly what we're doing, like come talk to me, come join us, right? Like become Brennan, become a co-founder, like let's go together. Let's have this sense of pack again. Let's have a sense of team again. And like this is the only thing that's going to build really beautiful and lasting projects into the world, right? So I think that sense of like going together is really important, but it's also really hard. It's very hard to like find great partners. And then the other thing I would say on this is one of our great weaknesses is the internet, this chronically online atomized individual. But I've always said that wherever there's a lot of dark, there's a lot of light, right? And the internet is the greatest filtering tool ever created. I think I'm skipping ahead in our presentation here a little bit, but you know, this idea that we can make this broadcast right now. This broadcast automatically filters the whole world through the algorithms to find people it really resonates with. Those people can come join me in our online community where Brennan met me, right? And in there, we do calls, we build a relationship, and we can filter those into the real world. So it's like instead of being a passive consumer on the internet, if we actually put out our signal and we use it for filtration, we can find the best people in the entire world. Like it's actually crazy, right? So like I've met the vast majority of my friends through the internet. The vast majority, right? People have moved out to live by me. We've built brotherhood circles, traveling the world with a team from the Men's Academy, co-founders, all of it from the internet. So I think we're going to talk more about that process, but I think we wanted to talk about the personal first, didn't we?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. And so I want to pick up on something as we go back to those, four key points from a few minutes ago: your personal journey, your outer network, inner circle, and building your team. Something that you mentioned just a minute ago was becoming potentially an intrapreneur first. There's a step before you go off and try to build your own town. And I think what that points to is this personal journey of becoming somebody who's capable of high trust leadership, becoming a good teammate. What are some of the qualities that you found in yourself and co-founders to be important in this process of personal development and becoming somebody who can lead and really contribute in their best way to a town or a project like this?
Yeah, so I think there's actually two questions you're asking there. If you're just starting out and you want to like go join some kind of intentional community or cool startup or join us or like join some awesome project happening in the world, what do you need to focus on for yourself? The first thing that I think we're all in agreement on is capacity, right? Like, can you decide on a goal and execute on it? Like building skills. I just had a guy like send me his book that he just published. It was like, dude, I finally published my book, and I had talked to him a year ago. And I was like, great, dude, come see me in Guatemala. Like, you literally just passed the test. Like, can you like have a goal? I'm gonna write a book, execute on it, publish it. That tells me I can trust you on a team, right? Because you have capacity. So I think for anyone to join any team, like capacity is the first thing you need to build. Other characteristics I tend to look for as like a team member or an entrepreneur is, like a good heart, like a capacity to, be empathetic, understand other people's perspectives, have general social skills, I think is important. And then the third one is alignment, right? Alignment and vision. And I would say those three things like are really important. But you're also tickling at something much deeper. And this is like what's interesting, I think, for us here is in general in the academy, these webinars, these classes that me and Brendan are about to continuously put on is we speak to tribe entrepreneurs. What a tribe entrepreneur is someone who's using business influence and networks to build the communities of the future. It's an innovation on the entrepreneur archetype where you're not maximizing necessarily for profit, you're maximizing for like real world, villages, I guess. Like that's kind of the tribe entrepreneur archetype. Inside of that, there is 5 key qualities that me, Steven, and Brennan have kind of like shook out of like, why would someone come join you, right? If you have a big vision, right, you want to do some big things in the world and you want to find co-founders, why would co-founders come join you, right? And so those 5 qualities is one is vision, right? Having a North Star. Brennan, if you have this slide for this, we could throw it on the screen. If not, it's cool. Um, the second thing is charisma, right? The capacity to influence people and be persuasive. The third thing is credibility and groundedness, right? Can you be both a visionary, but be taking very practical actions every day and have a track record of success? The fourth thing a tribe entrepreneur needs or aspires to is resources, right? If you have like resources and vision, generally you can attract really great team, right? And the other thing that entrepreneurs need to look for and become is top talent, right? I think we can get deeper into all of these briefly here, but basically, as a tribe entrepreneur, if you're wanting to like build the communities of the future, you need 2 of these 5 things, right? Any 2 of these 5 things is enough. If you have a great vision and resources, you can like buy land and start uniting people around a project. If you have a lot of charisma and credibility, you can be a very great leader, right? Ultimately, though, as individuals, if we want to be tribe entrepreneurs, we should aim for all 5, right? Vision, charisma, credibility, groundedness, resources, and other top talent. Now, Brennan, do you want to go deeper into our matching of like how this kind of worked out for us?
Yeah, sure, sure. And before I get to that, just to pull out a couple of things that I think are meaningful from your comment. And initially, when we're thinking about capacity, it's very important to start, I think, with a sense of reflection and self-awareness about what our own strengths and weaknesses are. And sometimes when people are trying to start something new, there can be a temptation to do everything on our own. And so how do we get realistic about what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, and then try to find co-founders, teammates who are going to bring complementary capabilities, people who round those things out, people who can challenge us, people who can fill in the gaps that we have. And so you build a diversity of excellences, and that begins with a deep sense of self-awareness about how about where you're at and where other people are at. And I think the other piece of that is in some cases, you were talking about the importance of capacity and agency, and that's important for undergirding these different key pillars of the tribe founders. But we might naturally want to reach for certain people who we know or are familiar to us, people who are already friends. And there are people who can be great friends, but don't always have agency at this stage. There are people I know who don't have great follow through. And so in some cases, it might be being realistic with ourselves and also realistic with the people in our lives who's actually going to shake out for some of the key roles. And embarking on something as difficult as starting a business, trying to start a new tribe, start a new town with that clarity at the front end. I think that plays out, as you were asking, Christian, in how this started with the two of us. It's actually
You're
interesting.
getting a little bit quiet, Brendan. You're getting a little bit quiet. Can anyone in the comments tell us if he's getting quieter? But I think it was because you're leaning backwards. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
Try
I'll try
again.
to be louder. I'll try to talk louder. I hope that's
Yeah.
better. Thanks for your
Yeah.
patience, everyone. But starting with our journey, Christian, it's interesting. This time last year, I hadn't even met you yet, and I met you, through your YouTube channel. I was a fan of your content, and shared a lot of the ideas, values, aspirations that I did. I think that goes back to your point about deep alignment, and from my perspective, the vision and charisma and other qualities that you demonstrate. Um, and then I got to know you through your online community, and we started working together. And I think our partnership comes from this understanding of the shared vision that we have, and then also an understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. I know you're very, very good as a team builder. You're a great networker. You're always building relationships and bringing people in. For those of you who don't know, me and Christian were traveling together this summer in Colombia and in Mexico, so I saw all of that in person. And then I'm more focused on the organizational pieces and working with our development team on the app, which we'll talk about a bit more this session, and some of those aspects of discipline, organization, program management, and being a bit more of a taskmaster in that way. And so those two skill sets complement each other and allow us to work together, I think, in an effective way. So I think that's a big part of it. It comes from that sense of the alignment that we have, the self-awareness that we have, and then just that experience of spending time together and learning how to work together in a constructive way.
Yeah, I think it's all great points, and it's amazing how like Brennan does compliment me. For instance, we were just on like venture VC calls pitching our app to investors, and I'm tend to lead with a lot of vision and charisma. It's my strengths, right? Like this is why people find my YouTube channel. They're like, wow, I like this guy's authenticity. I like his vision, right? And they start following along. And then also like for me, there's been a track record of successes, like building multiple successful YouTube channels, the Men's Academy. I think I slowly developed these three things through like relentless execution, basically. I've been speaking on YouTube for, 10 years of talking head videos, right? So it's like really helped like refined how I speak, how I write, how I interact with people, right? And I think these three things allowed Brendan to like come and join the community and be like, man, I trust this guy. I trust this guy enough to even like start helping him in a real way. I trust this guy enough to actually quit my job and found a company with him. Like, I trust this guy enough to go out on a whim and like come to Medellin, Colombia, right? And I keep having this experience in my life where like I'll have one call with someone and they'll come spend a week or a month with me, right? Like it's a super high level of trust like built through that like vision, charisma, and credibility. Brendan brings a lot of credibility, vision, and resources, right? And the interesting thing is the moment that me and Brennan, Steven, some other guys get together, what happens is other people start to notice because they're like, wow, I want to be a part of that. That seems cool. I want to go hang out in, Tulum, Mexico or Lake Atilan, Guatemala, like build content businesses and like train together. That sounds awesome. So when you do get top talent together, like very, people with a diversity of excellencies, what happens is you start inspiring the world and attracting other top talent. And this is why I literally don't care for all the other problems that are going to come up when it comes to building a town, right? So I already just saw someone in the comments, in the chat talking about what's the legal infrastructure around like building a town or something, and it's a very valid question. There's a lot of like really valid questions. Like, how are you going to deal with interpersonal conflict? Like, how are you going to deal with like the ecology? Where are you going to do it? Legal infrastructure, economics, industry, all these questions. There's a million of them, right? It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me personally, I mean, the details do matter to some degree, but it doesn't matter to me personally, because if you're asking that question, it means it's a problem maybe you're interested in solving. And I talk to hundreds and hundreds of very talented people all over the world every year that want to do this and are like, I just talked to an expert lawyer, right? I just talked to someone who's done 15 years of building, classical styles and, natural materials. I'm at a crypto conference right now where they're talking about the future of decentralized technology, economies, regenerative agriculture, and sustainable development. The interesting thing is there are people all over the world who are experts in all of these fields. So you don't need to become all fields and do them. What we need to do is build a team that can attract them, right? Yeah. So as a founder, as a tribe founder, this is your first principle, is thinking in terms of top talent. So this is where this map makes a lot more sense to people, right? Is instead of thinking in terms of how can I have a genius, idea and make all this money and do this thing and impose my blueprint and will onto the world, a more successful approach is how can I continuously put out an energy, a signal, my passion into the world and find other people who are walking alongside me, right? And how can we unite together? You may not be the CEO, right? Maybe you're the right-hand man. Maybe you're leading, some specific part of the charge here. But like the idea of tribe founders is that you're thinking in terms of talent, right? And so when you're thinking in terms of talent, look at these 5 key things: vision, charisma, credibility, resources, other top talent. Pick 2 of them and really focus on cultivating those and finding others that complement you. If you can get a team of 3, 4, 5 people together who have all of these, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to build something extraordinarily excellent and beautiful, because that's going to be, you have all that it takes to attract the best people in the world, right? If you have an inspiring vision, we're going to build an academy town. You have charismatic leadership people, you have influencers coming to join you, you have credibility, a track record of success, economic engines helping you, you have resources from that, and then you also have top talent, a diversity of excellences coming to join you. Wow, everything will start to happen. And this is where, like, a lot of people, ask me, where does families like enter into this picture? Homesteading, right? Like, where does more of like the practical trade stuff occur? Well, it's like once you can pioneer and find like just co-founders and get the resources and team that's capable of buying land, whatever kind of project you want to start, beautiful, right? It could be an entrepreneur hub in a city. It could be a homestead, right? It could be a spiritual eco-village. The thing that's blocking all of these projects from occurring is people aren't bonded in a very deep way and generating resources together. And if I was going to start on any of these, this is where I would start, is thinking about what attracts top talent.
And for the record, Christian doesn't worry about governance structures and things like that because he knows I will handle it. I would recommend you subscribe to the ReTribalize podcast. We want to do more content going forward, future webinars on some of these interesting issues of the practicum. How do you think about LLCs versus C corps? How do you get into issues of land trust versus private membership associations? And that's all really exciting things. So we want to do more of that going forward. But to Christian's point, and I think this is really important, we often get stuck at the starting line of these things don't even get going. And so finding co-founders, finding a great team, I think is a first step, because if you try to put all the legal questions, your land, your vision, all that, you're going to end up with a blueprint in your head and no people to actually fill it. And you'll learn a lot from collaborating with them along the way. And the other thing is, there's many intermediate steps. So we're going to pivot to some of these things in our conversation here that go between wherever you are now and the end point of living in a homestead in Wyoming with a tribe. There's many things that can happen initially. It can be building a co-living house with people who aren't just roommates, but who are actually deeply connected to you. It can be starting, as Christian was mentioning, some kind of an economic engine, some kind of a business, an economic cooperative with people who aren't just colleagues, but who are really linking destinies with you. It can be traveling with people, getting to know them. There's a lot of intermediate steps along the way that I think can make this vision more practical. And for the sake of conversation, I want to pick up on something you were talking about earlier, Christian, with the way that you can use the internet, for example, to find top talent, to find the people who are really going to be part of this founding team. And so when you think about, your outer network, as you sometimes call it, going from just where you are now to starting to find people that are really going to be aligned with you. What are some of the things that you've used or that you found to be helpful in building an outer network and in accelerating your network with like-minded people?
Yeah, I'm glad we're getting into the practical steps here. So,
Mhm.
um, once you have thought about those personal things, what qualities do you want to develop? How can you take your hero's journey, find your zone of genius, those kinds of things? The thing you want to be doing in parallel to that is relentlessly building your outer network. I don't think people quite realize the strength of weak ties, right? It's one of the most famous like sociological papers in the world. Is this idea that by having many weak ties, you're only a couple degrees away from any person or any dream that you want to build, right? So like this idea of cultivating the outer network is honestly like probably the number one skill that like leaders need to develop to some capacity. There's two ways to do it, right? Um, the two ways to cultivate your outer network is one locally, and this is what most people can lean into. I am always going out to the nicest cafes to do my work, the co-working spaces, gyms, sauna and cold plunge centers, dances, events, right? With the intention of like just saying hi to people, being getting familiar with the community. Something amazing happens when you just have familiarity with people that you see once a week, once a month, and you just say hello to them. Is that you can start rapidly expanding your network in the sense of I said hello to one guy at a festival, right? Turned out to be a YouTuber with millions and millions of subscribers, invited me out to Boulder, right? I started hanging out with him in Boulder. I moved there. I got connected to his entire network, and that it just spreads, right? It just spreads really rapidly so that you can have this like capacity to find your best friends through the local area. That's one approach, and that's what people have done forever, right? Um, the second approach and actually the superior approach is YouTube, is social media, leveraging online communities as a pre-filter for the entire world. So let's go deeper into this. So in terms of building your outer network, I've been doing YouTube for, like many years, 10 years of talking head. And since the beginning almost, I've always had a link to talk to me one on one, whether that was for one on one coaching, to join my community, to get a consultation on something. I've always had a link to talk to me one on one. So I have done maybe like 5,000 calls with strangers from YouTube, right? And I have met most of my best friends doing it because something incredible happens on social media is the algorithm is only showing your content. If you're authentic, it's only showing your content to people who already think and feel like you, right? So it's amazing that when I talk about like my spiritual practice, my vision for a town, the academy ideals, reviving, some of these values and cultures that are really like near and dear to my heart. When I talk about these things, I get guys reaching out to me like, bro, you spoke directly to my heart, And I just talked to a guy yesterday, like, is a journalist, an author, manages, like a magazine, wants to start a investment fund, private equity centered around Bitcoin, regenerative agriculture. He's connected to that whole world. And he's like, I've never felt so in alignment with someone in my entire life, right? I've spent a lot of time dialing in how to do this, but basically I've, even in the last year, I've done 500 calls with strangers. I would say the vast majority of those calls are with people in higher alignment with me than I could ever find in any town or city, like ever, right? So this outer network, I'm constantly like building touch points to, and then filtering it into my online community. And in the online community, we just do calls like once a week, once a day. And this is the Men's Academy. We actually talk a lot about this. What we're discussing here right now is tribe entrepreneurship. We're going to talk more about the academy soon because it's going to be becoming the ReTribalize Academy. But essentially, I think there's insane power in joining an online community like that or starting your own and creating touch points. There's 80, 90 people in the Men's Academy. I have all of these touch points and it can shake out like, oh, I met Brennan through the Men's Academy, right? I met Steven through the Men's Academy. I met my best friend Cam, right, through a call from my YouTube channel, right? And he moved out to the town I was living in. So this idea of building your outer network allows you a much better filtration process, right? And this is the thing, like if you're trying to build any kind of project, the number one problem most of you guys have right now is actually a recruitment problem. If you had someone who matched you in agency, intelligence, will, and vision, like Brennan does for me, right? It doesn't just like double your dream. It 100x's your dream, but it's a recruitment problem. How do you find them? Because they're not in your town most likely. They're not even in your city most likely. So this is the idea of like ruthlessly building the outer network to like find the inner tribe. That would be my synopsis on it. Brendan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, yes. And I think this is one of the big opportunities of the modern world. There's all kinds of ways in which we see how technology, being too online, as you mentioned, can be atomizing or it can
Mm,
contribute to loneliness. But if we use this in an intentional way, we have the ability to not just associate with the people who are down at the bar or the people who we automatically know from our natural social circle, although those can be useful resources as well. And those are meaningful ties. But we can also try to build chosen community, build communities that connect with us on levels of vision, on levels of value, and to find the people out there in the world that we're really passionate about working with. And I think one of the things that's important about this is how do you find the people that are actually really aligned when, in some cases, if you think about a lot of social media networks, like I'm on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn if you want, you know, and I've used that quite a bit, but we can't always be genuine if you don't necessarily have the platform that you do, Christian. You've been very authentic on your channel. I think for me, coming from the corporate world, coming from that background, where it's in sometimes difficult to be genuine about what you actually want, and that's one reason why people don't get the things they want. They don't ask for. They don't put it out into the world. And so one of the things that we're trying to do, in addition to the filtering you mentioned, is create the ReTribalize app, which I believe some of you have already used if you're following this channel. We're getting a lot of people on the app, but ReTribalize.ai. If you go to ReTribalize.ai, you can share your story, your passions, your background, what you're looking for with our AI interviewer, and it will take that and analyze it relative to the entire user pool and help to automatically match you with people who have a high degree of alignment with what you're looking to do, where you want to go in life, backgrounds, shared interests. And so even if you don't have a huge billboard to put out to the world on your social media platform or don't already have that, or if you do, it can help to be an accelerator to solving that recruitment problem, as you mentioned, Christian, of finding the people that actually want the things that you authentically care about and then being able to start building those relationships. So I think this is a new way of we can use the strengths of AI and the strengths of modern technology to help people go through this filtration process faster and get to the real relationships that are going to lead to meaningful projects for them.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up here. We don't mean to shill too hard for retribalize AI, but I do think it's like I've identified the main problem that all of us have is a co-founder problem. It's a best friend problem. If you have a best friend who's like going with you, everything becomes 10 times faster and easier. Uh, so this is like the place to start in a lot of ways. And in fact, we built this app based off my experience, right? Of like doing all of these thousands of calls. Like I don't want you to have to do 1,000 calls, right? I don't need you to make a YouTube channel and get hundreds of thousands and millions of views on it and spend, 5 years of your life working on that full time to do these calls to find your people, right? How could you do that in 2 months, right? Well, the AI matchmaker is just going to connect you directly. It's going to filter everyone who you'd have to do calls with and find like the 5, 10, 20, 30 people that might be the most alignment with you in the world. Now, our database is small right now. We're going to do a huge marketing effort next year with this app. Pouring like this is the mission. Like how can we get 10, 100,000 people on this app so that you can do 15 calls on it and potentially find your best friend, your co-founder that wants to build with you. So you can go like jump on ReTribalize, .ai to start using that so that you don't necessarily have to build a huge billboard to build your outer network. One challenge we've had with the app is like people get on there and then they don't know what to do. And I guess what I'm telling everyone to do right now is like build your outer network. And if you have a tool like that, it's automatically going to connect you to people from the ReTribalize project, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're already interested in what you want to do, right? So it's just like do calls with them, text with them, see what they're like, and then we're filtering for a best friend potential. I my friend Steven here is so funny. He's like, if someone's gonna come live with us, like that's step one. Like come co-live with us for a week or a month. I'm constantly inviting people out. But he's like, if someone's gonna like be a co-founder with us, like go the distance, he's like, I'd have to be comfortable with them being the godfather of my children. And like I think that's a really good litmus test of like kind of like what you're slowly looking for, which we can get into here as we talk about building the inner circle.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to go to next as we think about, so far the personal development we go through. How do you start finding people in the world, your outer network? And then how do you start thinking about that from your perspective, Christian, reflecting on the people that you've met, the people that you've built with? How do you start deciding who to bring into your inner circle? And so what's the process that you've gone through?
Yeah, so I'll tell you guys a story here. Before I tell that though, please this is supposed to be like a webinar, so in the chat, drop your questions, your comments, your reactions to like this discussion because we're gonna get to the Q&A soon here. In terms of building the inner circle, this is something I've built an inner circle many times in my life, right? And then they slowly like trickled apart, and I've learned so much. In fact, at every stage of your personal evolution, the goal is to attract an inner circle to around you, right? To build that inner circle. Um, in the first real inner circle that I built was in this town, Durango, in southwest Colorado. And how it happened was through my YouTube channel, I called this guy Cam, Love Cam. He came out and actually saw me. He's like, I'm moving out to you. He moved out to our town, right? We started hanging out every day, right? And then through my network in the community, I met another friend. I met another friend, and I was like, we need a brotherhood group, right? Like we need a wolf pack, And so we started hanging out every single Sunday. We would do sauna, cold plunge, meditate together, and then like take a hike or play games. And it started to create this like really deep bond, right? These guys started as strangers, but by the end of 2 years, like we were brothers, right? We would go anywhere together. Unfortunately, one had a family and had to move away, another for financial reasons. There's like, a kind of a dispersion of it. And me personally, I had much bigger dreams that I wanted to bring into the world than living in Durango. So I also moved up to Boulder. So that was my first encounter with building an inner circle. And there's so much to think about there in terms of like, how do you build an inner circle? But I would say like the ReTribalize process of building an inner circle is actually online first. Okay. Just because of the filtration, like skill we have here. So if you're building an abundant outer network, you're joining things like the Men's Academy, right? You're joining things like the other online networks that you really resonate with. You're making content or you're using our app. You're building your outer circle touch points. The thing that you have to think about is proximity, right? So proximity is where everything really cruxes on, okay? So in the Men's Academy, I'm going to tell you a story here. So in the Men's Academy, we have like these 80 guys online. We do all these variety of calls, and the explicit intention of the Men's Academy is to build 3 academy houses in the real world with co-founders by the end of next year, right? And what that looks like is just finding one person that you resonate with from your outer network that you really resonate with, right? And being like, hey, instead of having random roommates from Facebook Marketplace, I'm going to get like, will you room with me? Or will you travel with me? Or will you rent the house next to me as my neighbor? How can you live in very close proximity to highly aligned people? This is like the first thing. This is the first real step after building the outer network. The reason that if I even have a great friend, but he lives 10 minutes away, I only see him once a week because we have to plan around it, right? But if he lived next door, I eat dinner with him every night, right? Steven and me, we play chess every evening while eating dinner, right? No planning. We just meet at the same spot. It's like an episode of Friends because we have proximity to each other, right? So the thing that if you want to build an awesome inner circle, right? It's about getting proximity around people that you care about often, right? So there's 2 ways of doing this. In your local space, run some kind of meetup, barbecue, event once a week, right? It's basic, but at least it will unite your friends and then be a place where you can invite other people into. This is why I told you the story of the brotherhood group, right? We basically united around a sauna and a meditation, right? And because we did that every week, I had something to invite other people into, and generally it was really fun, right? So it could build my inner circle. And And the other way to do this is actually like proximity in real life, longer term, right? So if you're building a relationship online, right? You do some one-on-one calls. Brennan joins the community. We talk philosophy, business, Western civilization, retribalize, and we do this every week for a couple months. I'm like, man, I really like Brennan, right? Hey, Brennan, do you want to come out to Medellin, Colombia with me for a month? Right? It's a freaking move. It's a move. I've probably invited like 40 people, maybe, yeah, about 40 people out from my YouTube channels and online networks to meet me in the real world. Sometimes it doesn't work out, right? But other times you meet one of your best friends who's going to go build the dream with you. And so in terms of how do we create proximity, I think this is the next part of the episode we can go into, unless you have something more to say about building that inner circle, Brendan.
Yeah, I think the other piece to think about is one reason why weak ties sometimes stay weak is I think a lack of shared mission and a lack of shared projects. What you touched on about finding fun things to do and developing that kind of regular cadence is really important. But I think it would also be really important is to develop bonds around the people that you build with. And so if you think about when we were getting to know each other in the academy, when I started leading our philosophy symposium, we do a philosophy symposium every week. We talk about metaphysics, spirituality, history, all kinds of things. That was a process of really seeing how we work together and of having a sense of shared mission. And so one of the things I think is sometimes missing from friendships that stay acquaintances, where they stay acquaintances or they're just work colleagues. And there's not a fusion of the two, of where we're finding people where you have a deep bond and you're actually building something together, which is often where the deepest bonds come from. So I think that's another piece of when we think about that kind of proximity as well, proximity of mission, proximity of shared projects. And
actually, just to hit on that real quick, this is in terms of proximity and a shared mission of some kind. The shared mission can be spiritual, it can be financial, it can be going to the gym. Like just build friendships around doing something that you're passionate about. And I mean, this is the whole idea of projects on the app too, is like, if you're going to go travel the world or travel around America in your van next year as a digital nomad, like find one person to do it with you, right? If you're really into studying Rosicrucianism and Plato, right? Find one person to do it with you, right? If you're really into, building businesses or something, find someone to do it with you. If we return to this model of like, I prioritize clubs and proximity with highly filtered people, this is kind of the first step to figuring out who could be a co-founder, right? Because essentially like you're trying to get as many touch points as possible to build a real relationship through like shared striving, shared struggle, proximity with someone to see if you want to go the distance with that person. So we need to just think a lot about filtration, huge outer network into proximity and shared striving of some kind, into like a family, a founding team, right? Your wolf pack. That's the essential foundational thing.
Great. And so, from your standpoint, when you think about how do you get some of that proximity, practical steps, other recommendations or things that you would add about how you can start to do that, think about, and then some of the people that, the challenges that might come up along the way?
Yeah. Practical steps. The best option for the vast majority of people here is get a co-living house, right? Of some kind. And found that co-living house around something that you're passionate about. I've been giving a lot of people in the Men's Academy the martial arts farm idea, right? You don't need to start a great business. You don't even need location freedom. You don't need anything like that. You just need to find one person that's like, hey, I'll move out to your town or you'll move out to their town, and be like, hey, we'll either get we'll be roommates or we'll get houses or apartments next to each other, right? And in that, like you create proximity with someone. So to give you an example, I have a friend in the Men's Academy who lives in Vancouver, and he found a friend who's in high alignment with him because he's a tech founder, right? This guy's also a tech founder. He's very interested in robotics, AI, things of this nature. They have an apartment with a third room. And every year in that third room, they fill it with a business student that wants to become a tech founder from Vancouver University, right? So at all times in their apartment, they have founder energy constantly. It is a founder like hacker house for them. Like this is what they do. And what I've encouraged him to do is like, okay, go to the next level, get a 5-bedroom house with like a big workroom, right, in Vancouver, and literally call it the entrepreneur hub of Vancouver, right? Guess how many people would pay a top dollar to just live there with them, right? Like you have this energy of having a founder hub all of a sudden, right? This is something you can do anywhere in the world right now, right? It's like, hey, I'm really into martial arts and spirituality. Great. Can you find one other person through online communities, through the Men's Academy? Everyone's into martial arts and spirituality in the Men's Academy, or like our app or whatever. Find one other person, build a relationship with them online, invite them in real life, maybe to a meetup, right? Do something together in real life, and if there's vibe there, just be like, yeah, let's try a month, let's try a 6-month lease together, right? You don't need to like put one danger would be like over committing too quickly. It's like offering a proposal for marriage to a girl that you're on a honeymoon phase with. Not a good idea, right? Like basically you need to be casual about these things. It's like, hey, I like you, Brennan. Like, I really liked Brennan when I met him. And I was like, I like you, dude. Like, yo, like, hey, we're building this app. Can you help us like get the infrastructure laid for, how we'd go about this? He does it. He executes really well. I was like, yeah, come out, right? I remember meeting Brendan. I'm like, wow, I'm meeting a total stranger. He's in my apartment in Medellin. I'm giving him a hug. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, okay, like now we're going to see if it works. It's kind of scary, right? But at the same time, if you're casual about it, you're like, hey, we're very aligned. Like, let's get rooms next to each other, apartments next to each other, and start having that proximity. It's gonna shake out who's meant to be in your life for the long term, right? And this is why we need to really prioritize that proximity. The best ways to do this: co-living house, right? And one other point on the co-living house, what I recommend is you find one co-founder, find one person with best friend potential, become roommates with them, but rent a house with 1 or 2 extra rooms. Join the ReTribalize app or join the Men's Academy. Constantly build your outer network, right? And then invite people for month-long stays in those extra rooms, because all of a sudden you have space. Space is the only thing you need to think about when it comes to proximity and building the inner circle, right? Space is everything. So if you have 2 extra rooms and you're constantly like using the technology for what it could be, and this is like an hour a week of work, right? Just filtering people, all of a sudden you find like my guy Ben up in like, the north of America, who's just a freaking all-star. Can't wait to come have him out here, right? And like I got my guy Gabriel coming out here. I got, Isaac coming out here. Quite a few people, because I'm renting this house with 4 beds on the lake in Guatemala, but there's cabins all around it which they can just rent for $600, right? So there's this idea of, if you have a vast outer network and you have extra spaces in your real life, whether that's like a guest house, an extra room, you can invite people who are in alignment for little trial periods. Just get together, hang out. I just live my normal life. It's not an event for me, right? I'm always doing this. So I just live in my normal life. I'm writing, doing my thing. You can be working your job, whatever, but just constantly having people coming through. And like, if you're an introvert, let them know. You gotta be real with this. Like, hey, like, I like to, maybe we can like chat at night. Like me and Steven might just chat at night. That's it, right? So that's one approach. Second approach is traveling, right? Airbnbs. We just had a villa in Tulum with 4 or 5 guys from the network, 5 guys at the peak there, for a month, right? And the rent was cheaper than a basement dwelling in Denver in a house with 5 strangers, right? So we could rent a house in Tulum for a month with 5 guys. Although this requires location freedom. If you have location freedom, this gives you the advantage of slow motion travel, right? Where you can rent big houses at very discounted rates. Like we're about to get a 4-bed house for $1,200, like $1,200 for a 4-bedroom house. You split that between 2 guys, and then you have 2 extra rooms. People can come out for free. So space is everything. It's super highly high priority. Yeah, that's what I have to say there.
Perfect. I think we've covered a lot of ground on this whole arc of going from your personal story, your personal journey, for any of us, outer network, inner network, team building, and proximity. And perhaps we can think about the questions, the Q&A period. I don't know, Christian, if you have any questions or comments in the chat that we can address.
I would say the last thing to think about before we get to the Q&A here is there's already dope people doing it that you can just go connect with, right? Um, and like, again, I'll just use me for an example because it's what I know. Like, if someone really demonstrates like high alignment capacity, they built a business before, or done something, or can really like really help me, it doesn't take much time before I'm like, yeah, like there's an extra room here, they're over there, like whatever. And I think this is like what I'm encouraging for tribe entrepreneurs to do. Like if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an influencer, think about how can you use resources to find your best friends in the entire world to go build bigger dreams with. You know, this is what co-founders are about. And for me, like I filter friends this like to the same degree I filter women for marriage. It's like it's literally like it's what we have to do if we're gonna like actually go the distance with people, link destinies for the long term. So that's all I have to say there. I think we covered great ground, Brennan. Yeah, we can go to some of the comments. I don't think there's many people on this live stream because this is a new channel. And yeah, the first question is where can I find this one co-founder or friend? And yeah, I think this is actually a great time to transition to talking about the Men's Academy. Brendan, are you there? I seem to have
I am,
frozen.
yes.
Okay. Um, so the best place to go find your co-founder is actually come join the Men's Academy. The Men's Academy, it is a paid community. It's $57 a month, but inside of that, we have daily calls with me, with Brennan, with other leaders inside the academy, and it is this opportunity to, like actually build a relation. Like we do calls. It's not a chat room. Most of these servers out here, most of these communities are Discord servers where you just chat. They don't understand. These people aren't trying to build in the real world. We are. So if you do want to come find people who want to build in the real world, the Men's Academy is the place to do it because everyone has the same intention, right? This is what it's for. So right now, for the next hour, I'm actually just going to drop the price to $47 a month. Fuck it. Yeah, $47 a month. And just change that. So it's like a 20% off discount. I'll leave that up for the next hour for people who are actually on this live stream. Um, so that's the best place to do that. Also, in terms of finding a co-founder, you can go about it yourself, right? And that looks like using our app and joining online communities or starting a YouTube channel. But you're gonna have to drive the ship, right? Of like, hey, I'm gonna constantly create content, follow up with people, filter people. It took me a long time to figure out how can I actually use content to filter the world to find people in high alignment with me. One thing I have seen work for people is the X strategy of like posting content on X and YouTube and then using X to network with people who are in your niche. And from there, building relationship, jumping on shared podcasts, and then finding your co-founder through that means. So if you have, basically 20 hours a week to commit, I'd recommend going the influencer community builder route. And if you don't have that amount of time to commit, I'd recommend joining our community, joining other communities, and using the app to simply spend about an hour, 2 hours a week filtering people to find your co-founders. Great. Um, Continue on with questions here. Um, so I can't read the name. Some kind of Coptic text. He says, I have skills like heart, capacity, vision, etc. However, the skills that are needed in such projects are something I really lack. Do you have any advice on how you can acquire such skills? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
go on, Brendan. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think this is a great comment because what I would think about is sort of like what's the spine of your skill set and what is the periphery of your skill set. And so there's certain things that come very naturally to us. Many of the things that I do, I love writing, I love studying. I come from, an academic, political consulting background. Some of the things Christians described in terms of being a great networker and things like that are more challenging for me because I'm introverted. So I think part of it is becoming really aware of, our strengths and weaknesses, like I mentioned, but also having a growth mindset. that even the things that we're really good at now, we can get better at. And the weaknesses that we do have, we can help to modify if we develop it. And the way to do that, I think, is by experimenting. We learn by doing. It's one of the things that's most important about becoming an entrepreneur is you learn so much about all the details of building an organization. Like the initial phase of entrepreneurship, it's not really more money and it's not more freedom. It's really, really hard to do, but it's amazing learning. And you learn so much about yourself and other people and all of that. So I would say just learn by initial experiments of pushing ourselves a bit out of our comfort zone and whatever skills you're referring to that you need to develop, whether it's project management or whether it's a particular skill, tech skills, things like that. There's so much that we can learn if we sort of experiment and then start trying to learn by doing. And then that'll point to the things that actually are important to learn, things that are less important. But I think it's just having that bias for action and starting with incremental steps to get there.
Yeah, it's a great point. Is like your capacity just to learn skills through like an entrepreneurial attitude, and actually that's probably the skill that's the most important, right? Especially in the beginning of any of these projects, everyone needs multifaceted people. You're trying to build new tribes, businesses, social networks. Like it's so multifaceted. So like I'm always looking for people who like, yeah, I can design a thumbnail. And if I can't do that, I will teach myself in 1 hour and do it at a proficient level. And also I can build a shed. And also I can hold a great conversation, around technology or something. Like I think being multifaceted and just having this energy of like, you know what, I can learn quickly and I will learn quickly to serve the bigger whole. Those are the guys I'm looking for. Those are the guys that can become tribe entrepreneurs, become really helpful in general is like, yeah, if you're a great software developer, we could hire you right away for the app, right? But I was just talking to my friend AJ, and AJ is like, I don't like software. I don't like any of this, but you know what I can do for you is I want to start the ReTribalize residencies, right? I want to come there and hold down community events like martial arts, meditation, wild man retreats into the forest, and just be the center hub of like events happening inside of ReTribalize. And I was like, thank God. Like, I don't want to do that. That sounds exhausting. And he's like, that's my mission. That's my dharma. I want to bring like connection, love, and power and like transformation into communities. And I'm like, great, come. Like, you know what I mean? So there's this element of like whatever your skill is, think about how it can serve a bigger project of some kind, right? And then furthermore, I think there's a lot of pressure right now to like, I need to become some kind of tech entrepreneur influencer in order to get financial freedom. I actually don't think you need to, right? There's like, for instance, you could work a blue collar job doing like electrical engineering or carpentry or something, right? You could use an app or use the community to go find one or two co-founders, in America, start building those relationships with them. You get a co-living house where one's a bartender, right? One, you do carpentry. The other, works for insurance sales, whatever. But you guys are all into martial arts, spirituality, and like want to get into farming, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really like matter. If you want to join a project like ours, of course, I'm going to look for like high capacity in a variety of areas, but capacity itself is the most important thing. It's just agency. It's like, yo, if you have the task of like, hey, I need a sales guy, right? Or, hey, I need someone that is managing, app development. It's like, yeah, on it. I'm going to learn this in a week, right? Like if you have that energy, you're very valuable on a team, right? And I do speak to a lot of men out there. And men who are concerned with like building in the real world, building brotherhood, building tribes, this how the world works. The most important element in a man is his capacity to be valuable to the team. If you don't have that capacity, it's really hard to have you on the team, right? So I would just think about capacity and agency. Awesome. Okay. Um, so I think the final question that people are kind of alluding to, and I know many people think in this terms, is the vast majority of people in the retribalized space are concerned with sovereignty, like self-sustaining, land, right? Maybe being in a community of shared ideology, and things like this. And if you have questions around that, right? Like, what does the economics, the religious foundation, the land, the sovereignty, the legal side, what does all that look like? One thing I would be really, I'm curious your thoughts on this, Brendan, too. But I mean, I stand at the beginning, right? Like the first step on the invisible staircase towards any of that is literally finding two people that you really get along with well and want to go do it with. There can be no self-sustaining off-grid, community. There can be no real sovereignty, right? There can be no real like prepping for survival or spiritual eco village without people that you are bonded with for the very, very long term. So I would say for everyone here, just start at some kind of co-living space with your friends and get crafty about how you find those friends and what kind of co-living space you create. If we do those two things, we'll be well on our way to tribe entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if you start moving in that direction incrementally, recognizing it's going to be a journey, it's going to be a process, then you'll start seeing the things that you actually need to learn and the things that you don't. And then it just goes back to capacity building, all those things that you mentioned. How do we think about uniting people around an ideology? Well, that's a skill to learn. How do you build a culture as a leader? That's a skill to learn and develop. And we learn by doing and through experience. When it comes to things like land use and governance, that's a thing to study. Obviously consult with a lawyer, but there's a lot you can learn about how to structure an organization autodidactically. I've spent a lot of time with, just learning this stuff through AI. Go talk to Claude. I talk a lot with Claude, and Christian knows how much I love Claude. But go talk with him. He's a great lawyer. He's a really good lawyer. Verify what he says. But Claude really understands land use and the distinctions between different governance structures. So just start doing it, but you'll figure out what you need to learn.
Yeah.
And, we've had some of this already, Christian, is, we're thinking about how to finance the organization and stuff like that. How do you structure a safe contract and these kinds of considerations? But when you start doing it and find people do it with you, it'll point to the things that you actually need to know versus just this like huge abstraction of, well, there's all this stuff to do. It's like there is, but we figure out what's important and how to manage it as we go.
There you go. So if you're really like interested in a certain problem about building the towns of the future, that's the problem you're probably supposed to solve. And on the way there, develop your personal skills, build your network, and find your co-founders. If you can build your small wolf pack, I can build my small wolf pack, and a variety of people can do that. When we unite, that's how we can build insane dreams into the world. So if you want to talk to me every week, talk to Brendan every week, go through our classes and build these relationships to find your co-founders, like serious, the Men's Academy is 20% off right now for the next hour for everyone here, right? So you can just come join that. $47 it is an investment, but I think the payouts can be priceless if maybe one day you're going to be traveling Guatemala building with me or someone. So that's there. And if you're like, oh, I don't want to, pay $47 for a community, I get it. That's cool. Two things for you then is one is come join the waitlist for the next cohort for us. We're going to be doing these classes much more consistently, and that's also going to get you on the newsletter to let you know when webinars like this are going to occur, when me and Brendan will be teaching, and what kind of events we have going on in the future. So there's a link below for that waitlist, and of course the ReTribalize app. It's free for everyone on this channel. ReTribalize.ai. Let's go build the towns of the future. Peace.